Hello, and welcome to the online version of the Driver Safety Program for drivers licensed in the state of Indiana. I'm Rob Robison, and I'll be your instructor. Before we do anything else, I'll explain how the class is going to go. Indiana requires that a Driver Safety Program class be at least 4 hours long. We've divided those 4 hours into 4 lessons, each about an hour in length. This allows you to take a break between segments. Those breaks can be for a few minutes or a few days, but they should be at least 15 minutes or so. And I suggest that you try no more than 2 lessons in a single day, if possible. After each segment, there will be a short 10-question quiz. This helps us verify to the state of Indiana that you're paying attention. It's also a useful teaching tool because it gives you a chance to use what you've learned right away. Over the years, we've found that this works really well. You need to answer 8 of the 10 questions correctly to pass. If you fail, you'll be given a chance to review the lesson and then be given a new quiz with different questions. You can move along at your own pace, but it's best to take each lesson all the way through and then take the quiz before taking any long breaks. Just remember, if a judge ordered you to take the driver safety program, you have 90 days to complete it. If you miss that deadline, your license can be suspended. Let's talk about Indiana's driver safety program. Most of you were ordered to enroll in this driver safety program because you had more than one moving violation in a year. Some of you are using it to have 4 points removed from your driving record. This can save you money on your car insurance. And for those ordered to take the class, you may have up to half of your court costs and fees waived after you finish the program. Those are good reasons to take the class, but there are other, better reasons. If you're old enough to remember what America's roads were like before seatbelt laws took effect in the 80s and 90s, you'll remember that over 50,000 people died on America's highways every year. Our population has increased a lot since then. So if this rate had continued, you might expect 75,000 people a year to die in vehicle crashes. But we also need to take into account that each of us, on average, drives more than twice as many miles a year as back then. If you add up the extra people and the extra miles, you might expect 150,000 people or more to die in crashes every year. But that isn't what happened. Instead, by 2010, traffic fatalities were down to about 32,000 a year. While that's still far too many, saving well over 100,000 lives a year is spectacular. Not to mention fewer injuries, money saved in medical costs, and so on. So how did this happen? It's clear that the biggest drops in traffic deaths came in the 20 years after 1970, when seatbelt laws took effect here in Indiana and around the United States. But by 1990, the gains in traffic safety stalled. The Indiana State Legislature realized that if we were going to bring injuries and deaths from vehicle crashes down even more, it had to be by changing driver behavior. Let me explain. A landmark study by Indiana University in 1979 found this: 2 to 3% of vehicle crashes happen due to mechanical problems. Another 4 to 5% are due to road conditions. And the remaining 93% happen because of a driver's action or inactions. What that means is a large number of those crashes could have been avoided or less severe if the driver had known what to do. With that in mind, Indiana introduced one of the first driver safety programs in the country in 1991. The hope was that giving drivers information and training would change how they drive. And as it turned out, it worked. By about 2010, the rate of highway deaths had been nearly cut in half from the early 90s. Part of that is due to technological advances. Overall, vehicles are safer than they were 25 years ago. But the biggest part of the decline in highway death rate had to do with how people were driving. How do we know that? Well, for one thing, the rate started to rise again after 2010. So why, after all those years of steady gains, would the roads start becoming less safe? Because of the emergence of a new driver behavior. that of distracted driving. Cell phones, texting and driving, and other distractions began to cause a serious number of crashes. Our numbers of crashes that had been decreasing steadily started rising again. Just as that 1979 study showed, driver behavior is the key factor in most vehicle crashes. So in the end, we're here to help you avoid dangerous situations on the road. Whether you're taking this class because you were ordered to do so by the court, or because you want to save money on insurance, this might be the best reason for you to be here and to take the material we cover to heart. If you do, it might mean protecting your loved ones from injury. It will also mean safer roads for all of us. At the same time, it can help bring down the immense financial cost paid by the people of the state related to vehicle crashes. Let's find out what Hoosiers think about driving in our state.
How big of a problem do you think distracted driving is on our roads?
I think distracted driving on the road in general is a really bad idea, and I can say this firsthand because I myself am not the best driver, especially when it comes to distractions. Anybody can drive. I don't care what anybody says. You got two hands and you got some eyes.
Right.
But yeah, the phone I'm guilty of, the fiddling with my music I'm guilty of, all of that stuff.
I have to say I appreciate your honesty with that question.
Yeah,
no one else has admitted to that. What do you think the leading cause of traffic accidents is?
I would say people be on their phones, people not paying attention to their surroundings, or sometimes when you're driving you have to watch out for other drivers of not paying attention.
What types of unsafe driving do you see most often?
Probably road rage or people just speeding, trying to get to their place faster.
Texting and driving. I see a lot of eating and driving. I've seen people do makeup, shaving their legs. I saw that before. That was nasty.
Shaving their legs?
Yeah, I saw someone shave their legs. Like they had their leg up right here and then it was on a red light.
Oh.
But yeah, no, that's unsafe. I would never do that with a razor.
So some things we need to finish at home.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, not here.
Last question. What do you think Indiana drivers can do to make the roads more safe?
The more people who drive cautiously, safe, defensive driving, I think the better off we're going to be. That's an easy answer, but the more we can get doing it, I think the better we'll be.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for your time today. Enjoy your walk.
As you can see, different drivers have different opinions on what the real challenges are for drivers here in our state. It shouldn't surprise anyone that every one of their opinions is right. As of 2016, there were a little more than 4.5 million licensed drivers in the Hoosier State. And if we interviewed them all, we would be able to cover the whole spectrum of driving issues we face in our state on a daily basis. We never know what we're going to encounter in our state roads, and the driving challenge is huge. This is a reason we're going to be covering quite a bit of ground in this class. The Indiana Department of Transportation, or INDOT, states on its website that there are over 12,000 miles of road shown on the Indiana State Highway map. This only includes interstate highways and U.S. and state routes. That may not seem like a lot until you factor in all our country roads that are not shown on the state highway map. This is because there are more than 66,000 miles of them. So we have somewhere near 88,000 miles of roadway in our state. Now let's add into that equation that there are roughly 6 million registered motor vehicles in our state in 2016, and you can begin to see the hugeness of the problem. Let's talk about the task of driving for a minute. Here in Indiana, the state wants drivers to know that driving in traffic is a lot more than just knowing how to operate the controls of a vehicle. It also requires understanding how to apply the rules of the road. This is how we ensure safe and efficient sharing of the road with other motorists. A conscientious driver also has an intuitive understanding of at least the basics of vehicle handling, so they can drive comfortably and responsibly. This takes a lot of knowledge. As we go through the course, here are some of the topics that we'll cover. Increased risks related to new drivers and older drivers. Safely sharing the road with various types of vehicles and pedestrians. Different challenges we face when driving in cities, suburbs, or rural areas. Driving in bad weather. Bad road conditions. vehicle maintenance and why it matters, and the proper use of child seats. We'll also spend some time on aspects of defensive driving and how to avoid crashes, as well as how to detect dangerous behavior in other drivers and ways to steer clear of them. And we'll talk for a few minutes about distracted driving. We'll also learn about how to navigate typical situations like traffic circles, right-of-way disputes, and blind driveways and blind spots. We'll also cover stopping distance, changing lanes, getting on and off freeways, and what to do and what not to do when we're stopped by law enforcement. Finally, we'll have a brief review of some specific Indiana traffic laws, such as the habitual traffic violator law, driver's license suspensions and reinstatement requirements, and what can happen if you're driving an uninsured vehicle. By the way, you may have noticed that I use the term vehicle crashes and not car accidents. An accident suggests that it was no one's fault. But we know better, don't we? Remember, Indiana University's study indicated about 1 in 15 crashes were from mechanical error or road conditions, and the rest were due to human error. Incidentally, the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, or NHTSA, did their own study recently, and it not only confirmed Indiana University's, but it found a slightly higher percentage of crashes due to human error. So let's be honest, they're not car accidents, they're crashes. What I want to do in this class is to give you the tools to avoid crashes if you can, and to make any crashes that do happen less serious. Now we're ready for our first segment on the challenges of driving here in Indiana.